Hey guys, come on in, come on in. This is going to be a special one tonight. Come on in. For those of you that are in the chat, I want you to get out your pens, your notepads, and we're going to do a little work tonight. We're going to have a little session tonight. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. We are going to have some discussions tonight, y'all. We're going to definitely have some discussions tonight. If you have not hit that like button, if you don't mind, please hit that like button. Just knowing that we're going to have a little class tonight. So there are a few things that have been going on. I have been sitting back watching. I wanted to wait until Miss Hurd actually started speaking in this part of the trial before I put something out here. But before I even got to that part, there were so many other things that had happened in between. I wanted to touch on that stuff. Y'all, I was tired. Sister girl was tired. I ain't gonna lie, I was tired. I'm too tired to come on. So I want to make sure I touch on some of these other pieces before I get into this Johnny Depp and Amber Heard situation. And if you guys look at the title, you see that there is actually something there that makes a connection to another situation that is going on. And I don't think a lot of people were aware of that. And I actually sat back and watched to see if anybody was going to take note or take notice of the fact that this psychologist, Hilda Land, how you doing? How you doing? That this psychologist had actually been involved in something else. And I don't think that either people didn't pay any attention or they didn't recognize the name. So we will definitely get into that and the role that she is playing in this Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial, as well as the role that she played in Mr. Kelly's trial, because she played a significant role in his trial. And this is the reason why people are using her for certain things. And I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to that. So we're definitely going to get on that. For the people that are in here, if you knew already, put a 1 in the chat. But if you didn't know and it's a surprise to you that she was actually involved in this other stuff too, then put a 2 in the chat. Because I'm just interested in knowing who already know her. Am I going to be giving people some information that they weren't aware of tonight? Just let me know. Let me know. So, and let me do a live chat. Let me make sure my stuff coming out right. Turn this down. Okay, we're good. We're good. Dr. Hughes, Dr. Hughes Hill, Dr. Hughes. She was the expert that was called in on Mr. Kelly's trial. Pretty much helped them put the nail in the coffin. But we're gonna get on that. First thing that I wanted to touch on really quick, and I don't know if you guys have been. Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna. I've been sitting back watching. Whenever I see cases and stuff like that, that kind of have like to me, kind of like a psychological background, or has you thinking like I'm into that stuff, right? Um, and so this case like really had my attention from the beginning. And because it's dealing with something that we have all been talking about for a number of years, one of those things being, do we always believe what women say whenever allegations are made? That's been a topic of discussion for a couple of years now, as well as the Me Too movement. That has been a topic of discussion for a few years now. So I'm not going to get too deep into that, but we are going to touch on it and the significance of what happened with this compared to some other stuff that we have going on. So before I get started, let me speak real quick. Hilda Land, I think I spoke. Hey, Lulu. Hey, you digging me? Hey, how you doing? Basic Mom. Hey, how you doing? Tracy. Hey, how y'all doing? Hope y'all got y'all pens and papers ready, because there's some information that you might want to talk about somewhere else. So we definitely got to make sure that we on top of this. Basic Mom, thank you. So the first thing is, because I'm gonna be getting on this thing where just because of my background, I feel like it's like I have some sort of duty to like check, you know, folks that are close to my arena when they're not doing what they're supposed to do, or when their stuff is not right. So there was a story with some officers. There was some stories with some officers. You had one story where hey Miss Fair, how you doing? You had one story where you had an assistant director of correctional services. Do know that this is, I guess, county / state, that basically helped an inmate escape, a convicted murderer, helped an inmate escape. Was just at the place she was getting ready to retire in days. She sold her house. She went and got a little cheap car. They have video footage of this guy. They don't know if they are romantically involved, if they're actually related. Like, they don't know what the deal is. But she is basically a big wig in the system, and she helped this guy escape. Like, she literally drove him up out of there. So that was one of the things that I wanted to touch on like really quick. And I see that y'all familiar with this y'all been watching the trial before tell me if y'all been watching the trial, so I know if I need to go ahead and jump into that. Because if not, then I go ahead and give y'all this story about this lady real quick. Let's see.
Frick Singleton is with the Lauderdale.
Okay, so I'm gonna give y'all this really quick before we get stuff started. The things stupid people do for love. Let me give y'all. Okay, let me I'm definitely gonna cut that out. So let me play Let me play this video. Which one is it? Okay.
Lauderdale County Sheriff's Department in Alabama, and he is leading this investigation tonight. Sheriff, we appreciate your time. I know you've got a lot on your hands here. You have said this is the Vicky that you do not know. Friday, she announced the retirement. Kelly just mentioned she sold her house. Now you have issued this arrest warrant for your colleague. Is it possible that this officer had everyone fooled?
I think it's very not possible. I think that's probably what happened. She's been with the department almost 17 years. She has a clean record, not a blemish on her record. If you needed anything done at the detention center, she was the go-to person. We're just in shock that she would participate in something like this, but it's obvious that she facilitated this escape, whether it was willingly or coercion, and she's involved in it. And we're trying desperately to follow every lead we can so we can get her and especially Casey White back in custody.
Yeah, he's dangerous. Sheriff, I want to look at the timeline with you for a moment. According to what we have here, Vicky left with Casey White at 9:41 a.m. Friday. Her patrol vehicle was spotted at about 11:34, and it wasn't until about 3:30 that afternoon that a booking officer said they had been trying to reach her and were unable to. So by my calculations, they may have had a 6-hour head start. Is that correct?
That's correct. There were attempts during that interim time where efforts were made. The Director of Corrections contacted her via text message between 10 and 11 and told him that he needed to see her before she left for the day, that he assumed she was still in court at that time.
Oh, you got an echo?
He texted her an hour or so later, said that he understood she had gone home sick, that she hoped she got the feeling better. And of course, that afternoon, about 3:30, the booking officer came to the other assistant director over administration and informed her that she had been trying to get in touch with Director White several times, and her phone was going straight to voicemail, and that she was concerned and that she had checked and that Casey White had not been returned to the detention center.
Right. What more can you tell us about their relationship at this point as you're starting to look over surveillance video with inside the jail, asking people who knew both of them closely, other inmates, family members? What more do you know about the tie between these two?
Well, as the Assistant Director of Operations, Director White was all over the jail frequently. She was up and down the hall. She had contact with every inmate in the facility. So, she obviously had contact with Casey White. We don't know if there was a romantic relationship between the two or not. We've gotten information from some of the inmates now that there was. But when something like this happens, you get all sorts of information from inmates, and you don't just take it on for its word. You have to look into it. But we've been doing that, and trying to determine if there was a relationship. We're checking phone records on Casey White, see who is calling, contacting outside, see if there's any other contact outside normal duty hours between the two.
So she dumped her patrol car in an area where there was not a security camera. So do you even know what vehicle you may be looking for tonight?
We've got some leads that we're following up on. Hopefully
So I'm going to stop this one because this is where it first started. Hey, Pat, how you doing? What's going on? So this is where it first kind of started at, like the. Can y'all hear me? Because I had to turn the mic down while the video was playing. This is where it first started at, and we're going to go back, and I'm going to let y'all see where it is now. Because they were thinking that it was a possibility that she was kidnapped, but I mean technically she did the kidnapping because she left with him. So let me give you.
Breaking news just into our Way 31 newsroom on this case. You're taking a look right now at surveillance video showing Lauderdale County Corrections Officer Vicky White walking out of the jail with accused murderer Casey White. This happened, this video, just moments before the two ran away together Friday morning. There they are leaving the Lauderdale County Jail. An active manhunt is underway for these armed and dangerous suspects. The latest development comes as you just heard that former victim of Casey's sharing a dire warning for Corrections Officer Vicky White.
Rick Singleton is with the Lauderdale County Sheriff's Department in Alabama, and he is leading this investigation tonight. Sheriff, we appreciate.
That's what's going on with that one. So you have this thing going on where you had the lady was like a day or two away from retiring, and I guess she had to make sure she did this before she no longer had access. Basic Mom, you're asking where were the other employees? Because she was in a higher ranking position, she actually sent the other deputies out with some other inmates on some trips, different types of trips that they had to go on. And she was the only one that could transport that inmate with those other officers being gone. So she set it up all the way around. And they found she went and purchased this little orange looking car. I mean, they can't hide in the car. I mean, they really can't hide. But she went and purchased this little orange looking car, and that's what they've been riding around in. So they ditched the police crews or whatever. But yeah, so that's what's going on with that. Now, I'm going to skip over the other stuff that I was supposed to be telling y'all about. We're going to go ahead and get into this Johnny Depp thing. Okay. First thing, this lady right here. Let me show you who I'm talking about, just in case you guys don't know, because I asked before if anyone knew who Don Hughes was, or Dr. Don Hughes. That is the psychologist. That's the second psychologist that testified in the Johnny Depp case. She was actually Amber Heard's psychologist. So you had a psychologist that was paid for by the prosecution, and psychology that was paid for by the defense. What people that are, kind of around this sector didn't realize is that this is the same psychologist that was also called for Mr. Kelly's case. She was the one, she advocates for women who have allegedly been abused. She also trains women who have, even if they've been abused, they've been accused of hurting their partner or possibly, in the words of what's her name, Nick at Night, unliving their partner. She teaches them how to testify on the stand on their behalf. So she kind of so this was the person that was put on the stand for Amber Heard, and this is the one that basically went back and discredited everything that Dr. Curry said, which was Johnny Depp's attorney. Now, when Dr. Curry gave her testimony, she got up there and she was really specific. She talked about the test that she did. She talked about doing the MMPI. She talked about doing 2 versus doing, any other version of it. She talked about some other tests that she ran. She talked about Amber being diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and histrionic disorder. Like, she talked about a lot of different things. All those things were discredited by this other psychologist. Okay, number one, this is something that you really don't have any business doing because it's unprofessional. It's very unprofessional. Now, we know that when you're getting paid by a certain side, so these attorneys hire you to be an expert witness. Of course, you're going to find things like they have you looking for specific things. So that's why you heard them talking about they looked at evidence, they listened to recordings, they looked at the depositions of a lot of different people, they looked at testimonies from other places. Okay, so they're looking at that stuff and they're supposed to form some conclusions. Now, with Dr. Curry, she was asked to do an evaluation on Amber Heard. She wasn't asked to do one on Johnny. And she gave her conclusions and her diagnosis based on her actually evaluating Amber Heard. That's what her stuff was based on. And she came up with her diagnosis. You had this other person who is actually a forensic psychologist. And she went in. The thing that bothered me about it is that I felt like she got on the stand and she was testifying for Amber. I had a major problem with that. She got on there and she was testifying for her. And to me, I feel like she laid the blueprint for Amber. She laid the blueprint out, telling her exactly what she needed to say and how she needed to say it whenever she got on the stand. And I think that that was the reason why they made sure that they put her directly in front of Amber before, you know, she testified. They were real strategic with that. So I'm sitting here and I'm watching, and let me, because I know y'all like, I thought she was gonna show the lady face. Let me show her face real quick so y'all see who we're talking about real quick. So y'all won't be getting Dr. Curry and Dr. Hughes mixed up. So this is, let's see. And y'all, she was mad. And I'm trying to make sure I stay professional with mine. Her facial expressions and even some of the ways that she responded to counsel whenever she was asked questions or she wasn't allowed to use her papers. Y'all, I have had to testify in court before, and there was only one paper that I was able to take up there, and it's this little blurb that we have to read before we say anything on the stand. Actually taking like clinical notes up there, assessments, anything that has a diagnosis on it. Like, we haven't been able to do it, but I've never been paid to go and testify. I did that, you know, working under the government. We don't get paid any extra money by going and testifying in a trial as an expert witness. So that's a little bit different. So our stuff is not going to be biased one way or the other because we don't have a dog in the fight. So it's a little bit different when you have people that are getting paid by a specific side to go in court and testify as an expert witness. So let me see. I just give you a piece of this one just so you guys can see her face.
I love him so much.
Let me pause it. 1 second. Yeah, she was mad about that, but I have never seen it. And like I said, I never had to go and testify as a compensated expert. Like I said, I had to go up there, you know, for other stuff. And, you know, you might see me have something like this, just a little sticky note or literally a piece of paper that's cut out, just a little slit. And it has my little blurb up there that I have to read before I say anything. And that's it. So I think what was interesting to me with that was whenever Dr. Curry got up and she was giving her testimony, and there were certain criteria and stuff on the test that she was trying to go into more detail with because they asked her a question and they didn't want her to go into detail with that question. So when she tried to go back and speak on specific scales on that test, they would cut her off. Or she would say, well, I can go into more detail if you allow me to look at the results from the scale. And that, well, you don't remember. No, you don't remember. You got all these things on here. You got all these questions. You got all this stuff going on. You done did all these tests. There is no way, no possible way for you to go and remember all this stuff. You got the MMPI, the Minnesota multi-facet inventory. You got they did a PTSD scale. They did CAPS-5. They did all kinds of testing on these individuals. So she should have had the same opportunity that they afforded their psychologists to go and consult her notes if they were going to let people consult notes, if they wanted the jury to get the right answers. But that was not the case. That's not what they wanted at that time. Let me pull this video up for y'all so y'all can see. So you'll have the visual as we have this little conversation right here.
And what, if anything, does the term love bomb mean?
So the love bombing is, it's more of the colloquial term for the younger folks here, but, you know, where you shower someone with affection and love, you know, in this contrition and calm phase where, you know, you're everything about you is special. You're the best thing in the world. I'm never going to do anything to hurt you again. I would never let anyone hurt you. And it could be sending flowers and buying gifts or going on trips or your favorite restaurants. And that is, you know, a way of where the man is trying to make those amends and then it gets the woman hooked. So they get hooked on the kindness, they get hooked on the love. They don't get hooked on the abuse. I've never met one woman in the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds that I've evaluated who was not concerned about the violence. They're all concerned about the violence, but they go for the love.
So just looking at her face right there, she already has a negative disposition just looking at her face. Like, and that's not me being like funny or anything. That's just fact. She has like a scowl on her face while she's talking. One of the issues that I had with her from the jump and throughout the duration of her testimony was that she made everything, there was like a gender stereotype there. So everything was specific to how things happen with women and men doing things to women. Everything with she talked about intimate partner violence. They focused on this a lot, which is also what they focused on in the Kelly case. She focused on this, and everything was about how these things affect women and that men do these things to women, not acknowledging the fact that this works both ways. So she just put it in the context. And it's one thing if she was just speaking on Amber directly, saying, okay, with Amber, this. But all the examples and stuff that she was giving, it was about men doing these things to women. And statistics show that and men are more likely to do but you're not giving like factual information. There was a lot of opinion behind it and a lot of manipulating the facts a little bit to go along with her testimony. But everything it was gender specific and everything was towards men. There was a definite bias that she had towards women against men, and that was very apparent while she was up on that stand. So that was one of the things that kind of caught me.
In your experience with these dynamics that you've described, does the victim ever yell at her partner?
Absolutely.
Why?
We know from the research that women use verbal and physical acts of aggression in these relationships. That's not uncommon. This has been researched for 5 decades. And a woman may yell at her partner because she's angry. And anger is a very normal emotion to having been abused. She can also be afraid, but they don't have to be mutually exclusive. We can absolutely, as human beings, feel 2 or 3 or 4 different emotions at once. People.
Okay, I just overlooked that. Okay, that was another problem that I had, because anytime that she mentioned Johnny Depp raising his voice or having any type of hostility towards Amber, it was considered emotional or psychological abuse. But in the case of Amber, because they have audio recordings of her yelling and degrading him, calling him names, calling him the PUSSI word and all kind of stuff, now she's actually going and she's making up excuses, trying to excuse Amber's behavior. So that's why she's making these statements at this particular time, because she knows that they have those audio recordings. But again, it's okay for her, because she's saying that she is the victim in this situation. It's okay for her to go and yell at him and degrade him and demean him, because she's doing it because she feels as if she's a victim. But if he feels as if he is a victim, he isn't allowed to do those things. So that, to me, she contradicted herself several times.
People do often say to me, oh, she would never yell at him if she knew he was going to hit her. And that's not true. That's just patently not true. That's not supported in the research, and that's not supported in my clinical practice. The problem is there's a classic double bind, and the violence has been so normalized in the relationship now. She gets hit if she does yell, she gets hit if she doesn't yell. So for women who feel at certain moments that they need to preserve some sense of their autonomy and their independence and stand up for themselves, they will yell and they will fight back, even though the risk of violence is there. So it doesn't mean that she's not afraid and that she's not concerned about the violence. And it doesn't mean she doesn't also use placating and compliance strategies most of the time as well.
Does in the cases that you have and in your experience, does the abuse typically take place in front of others?
No, I mean, this is classically what we talk about behind closed doors. Most of the intimate partner violence, the domestic violence, happens, in the privacy of your own home. So sometimes we see the remnants of it, the after effects, or victims talk to their friends or family about it, but very rarely are you seeing it happen, the actual blow-up phase happen in the middle of witnesses and other people.
What does the term bystander effect mean?
I'm gonna pause this right here because what I want to do is see if I can actually find the video of where she got upset initially with them not allowing her to use her notes. And she kind of came and she was very condescending on the stand, but she kind of, well, Amber's lawyer is condescending. I mean, they are really just disrespectful. But she came in basically to me like she was running the courtroom, like she had some type of authority in that courtroom. And the thing is, even if, you may have authority when you're in your office or you're dealing with your own business, but when you get into that courtroom, you don't run anything in that courtroom. You're nobody's boss when you get in that courtroom, and you're being paid to do a job. Let's see if I can get back. Okay. You're being paid to do a job. And even though she may be doing stuff to look out for well, this may be something right here, to look out for your client or whoever the person is that's paying you, you can actually get up there and you can be so braggadocious and so arrogant when you're on that stand that you actually end up doing harm to your client.
Testified yesterday that you have to give careful attention to gendered stereotypes.
Okay, they're talking about the gender stereotypes here. So let me let you guys get a little piece of this. And I want to see what your comments are in the chat. I want to see what your thoughts are, because you may have see this completely different than how I see it. But this is just me, just one clinical professional looking at these other folks and seeing like how they're doing things. And I felt that she was completely inappropriate with her testimony. But that's just my opinion. So let me get this back up here.
No, good morning.
Testified yesterday, you have to give careful attention to gendered stereotypes.
That is correct.
When you're talking about intimate partner violence, you have to pay attention to gendered stereotypes. And during your testimony, you in fact paid attention to gendered stereotypes, correct?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, you said we were going to have to pay attention to gendered stereotypes, and then you testified at length where you referenced both men and women. You paid attention to those stereotypes during the course of your testimony, correct?
What I was saying was you have to pay attention to gender stereotypes when you're conducting these evaluations. You can't assume all the time that the male is the perpetrator and the female is the victim. You have to go into the evaluation understanding that the male also could be the victim of intimate partner violence.
In fact, you're aware that there are large-scale studies that do say that IPV towards males does exist.
Of course.
Okay. And every time you referred to the characteristic of a victim of intimate partner violence yesterday, you used the pronouns she or her, didn't you?
I was using the she and her pronouns in this case because my determination was, as I stated, that Ms. Heard was the victim of intimate partner violence. That is why I was using the she, her pronouns.
You, in fact, said women get into the relationship for all the right reasons. That's what you said. Woman gets into the relationship for all the right reasons. And you say difficult for victim to extricate herself. You go on to say that she can and she should. Over and over, use she, right?
She.
In this case, I did because I was referencing this case where I found Ms. Heard to be the victim of intimate partner violence. It doesn't mean that men don't get into the relationship for all the right reasons too.
Nearly every time you referenced the perpetrator of IPV, you used he or him, didn't you?
Right.
And it goes back to the same reasoning as I'm describing my understanding and my evaluation in this matter. Of course, men can be perpetrators and victims of intimate partner violence. That's well established in the research, and that's well established in my clinical practice as well.
Isn't the reason that you used the pronouns that you did that you almost always testify on behalf of a woman?
That's not correct.
You don't even remember the last time you testified on behalf of a man.
Well, I don't testify on behalf of someone. I testify as to the results of my evaluation. I frequently treat and assess male victims of childhood sexual abuse.
She is agitated.
For abuse by their Boy Scout leader, by their coach, by their teacher, by a trusted adult. I see them in therapy. I see them in forensic matters, in criminal cases. So I treat and evaluate men all the time.
I didn't ask you about treatment. I asked you about testimony. You broke up your practice between treatment and testimony. I'm not asking you about treatment. When's the last time you testified on behalf of a man?
I testified recently in a deposition on behalf of a man who was traumatized because he was wrongly convicted.
At the time of your deposition 6 weeks ago, you couldn't remember a single time you testified on behalf of a man.
I testified in my deposition that I testified in the case of a man who was wrongly convicted about 20 years and suffered physical and sexual violence in prison, and I detailed the traumatic effects of that happened on that gentleman.
All right. Why don't we take a look at that?
Sure.
Now, the point along with this is she may testify for men, but it's usually in a same-sex situation, not with a man being the victim of a female with intimate partner violence or domestic violence.
Yes. Thank you.
There we go with the nose. Let me go get my glasses so y'all can see me be professional on here today, because we supposed to wear our glasses. That's what makes us look professional, right? Hold that thought.
March 28th, 2022, correct?
Yes.
All right. Let's go to page 77. Let's look at page 70, line 8. So you can't recall a single instance where you were hired by the attorney representing the male in an IPV matter, correct?
In an IPV matter, not in a trauma matter or a child sexual abuse matter.
Okay, so that's the distinction. You don't have any recollection of ever testifying on behalf of a male in an IPV matter.
As I stated yesterday, the very first case that I testified in was in a same-sex intimate partner violence where the man was the victim of another man. I routinely treat and assess same-sex couples where then the female can be the perpetrator of another female, and the male can be the perpetrator or a victim of his partner.
Same sex.
So let me get this. You testified in a case where one male is alleged to have engaged in IPV against another man.
Correct.
Okay. But that's the only one you remember. That's the only one you remember.
No, I've done this frequently. As you well know, most cases don't go to trial. I've worked on hundreds and hundreds of cases. These are limited to testimony. Many cases don't come to trial, but I've issued reports and worked on many cases of same-sex intimate partner violence where men are the victims.
But I did ask you about testimony, and I limited the question to testimony. And the only testimony that you remember is the same-sex couple, right?
There were multiple same-sex couples, I believe, that I testified.
That you testified in court at trial.
I believe so, yes.
All right, but you didn't remember that in March.
I did remember that in March.
Okay. You're a professional witness, correct?
That's not correct.
No? You make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year testifying in court, correct?
not testifying in court.
She is a professional witness. She's definitely a professional witness.
Evaluations of individuals who are involved in a court case. The majority of those cases never show up in a courtroom. And half of my practice and half of my income is about my clinical work with people who are coming to me for therapy.
I didn't ask you about the other half of your income. I'm asking you whether you made hundreds of thousands of dollars a year testifying as an expert witness in court.
As you're phrasing that question, that's not correct. That would be the amount of income that I generate from my forensic practice. I testify perhaps maybe once or twice a year. Most of the work is done behind the scenes in evaluating individuals and issuing reports.
But you'll agree with me that a big part of that practice is providing expert witness testimony.
That's not correct.
No? That's not a big part of your practice.
If I testify twice a year, that's not a big part of my practice. All the other time is doing the work for the cases and evaluating the individuals and issuing reports.
Look at her eyes. She is steaming mad. Look at her mouth. She is cursing under her breath. Let me press pause for a second. Let me press pause. She is literally cursing under her breath. Let me just take this back. Just a little smidge. Let's see. There we go. There we go. Now I told you guys before that there was this certain thing, like there's we look at body language and stuff like that, and I told y'all about a body language expert that I had did some stuff with, some training that I did, and I'm going to get into that too, because I'm going to let you guys see her at work, but I want you to see close up. Now, if it's not personal to you, whenever you get on that stand and you're testifying in an expert capacity, if it's not personal to you, then these questions that these attorneys are asking you shouldn't bother you, because you're not really trying to take one side or the other. You're just coming to present your findings. Now, if they question you about how you came up with your conclusions or stuff like that, then of course you're going to go and like, okay, this is what it is. But just them, unless they're stepping on pinching a little nerve or stepping on some toes, got to turn my volume back up. Unless they're stepping on some toes or something like that, then what they're asking you shouldn't agitate you to that point. Now, I'm going to go and I'm going to show you something real quick. And it's something I do when I'm trying to bite my tongue sometimes, like when I want to say something, but let me not say anything. And I want you to see exactly what she does. It's hard for her to maintain her own composure. She's having difficulty practicing emotional impulse control herself. So it's kind of difficult, and her client, the Amber, she's watching. So she's going to follow suit. So if the psychologist can't handle her emotions while she on the stand, and shoot, why do I have to try to handle mine? I mean, shoot, she like to lost it up there. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, but let me take it back a couple more seconds. Let me take it back here. Okay. And I'm gonna blow this screen up so y'all can see this.
What percentage of work do you devote to forensic psychology?
Look at her mouth. Watch her mouth.
As I stated yesterday, I say half and half clinical, half forensic, but I also have a substantial amount of time that I use in the professional activities and serving on professional boards.
So what portion of your practice do you provide expert witness services?
I think you're using the expert witness services synonymous with the forensic psychology part of the practice. So the forensic psychology practice,
Oh, why did it change? Hold on, y'all. Hold on.
In a case where one male and I limited the question to testimony. And the only testimony that you remember is the same-sex couple, right?
Give me a second. I'm trying to get it back in the spot.
The majority of those cases never show up in the courtroom. And half of my practice and half of my income is about my clinical work with people who are coming to me for therapy.
I didn't ask you about the other half of your income. I'm asking you whether you make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year testifying as an expert witness in court.
As you're phrasing that question, that's not correct. That would be the amount of income that I generate from my forensic practice. I testify perhaps maybe once or twice a year. Most of the work is done behind the scenes in evaluating individual condition reports.
But you'll agree with me that a big part of that practice is providing expert witness testimony.
That's not correct.
No? That's not a big part of your practice.
If I testify twice a year, that's not a big part of my practice. All the other time is doing the work for the cases and evaluating the individuals and issuing reports.
Look at her mouth.
What percentage of work do you devote to forensic psychology?
As I stated yesterday, I say half and half clinical, half forensic, but I also have a substantial amount of time that I use in professional activities and serving on professional boards.
So, what portion of your practice do you provide expert witness services?
I think you're using the expert witness services synonymous with the forensic psychology part of the practice. So the forensic psychology practice,
Okay, I'm gonna stop this one because it keeps jumping to something else. But just to see just a little bit with her, she has this thing like she doesn't want to admit that this stuff is personal. It's definitely personal when it comes to this situation. She has a personal investment in it, and she's getting paid $500 an hour, so she has to give them what they ask for. She got to give them what she's good for. Gail, how you doing? Sir Miguel, how you doing? Miss Fat, if I didn't speak, how you doing? I'm trying to chocolate chip. Anybody else? I don't think I missed anybody. Okay. So she, she was trying to, but this is the same woman. So let me just pull you in on where she came in on the Kelly case. So prosecutors inched close on Friday to concluding that concluding their case for Arcade, calling 2 witnesses to try to further cement allegations that he was grooming people. I'm not going to read this verbatim. It spoke about one witness, and then it said the other witness was an expert witness on abusive relationships, who is to return to the witness stand for cross-examination on Monday. This expert psychologist, Don Hughes, this is Dr. Hughes that we're watching now, testified about studies showing that many abusers systematically isolate, demean, subjugate, and spy on their victims as means of control. All tactics allegedly used by Mr. Kelly. Generally speaking, it isn't unusual for powerful people like him to be surrounded by underlings who know about it and didn't do anything about it. Now, there were other things that were said in this, but this was basically a part of their closing arguments to help build the case against him when it came to the intimate partner component and saying that somebody is some type of an abuser. And I'm trying not to go into too much depth with that because I don't want you to hit me on that. So this is where she actually came in at. So she has been somebody that people that have been taking others to court behind the Me Too movement and the stuff that's going on with Me Too. She has been, you can say, an advocate. She's been a big, a bright light for them because she goes in and she goes in hard. And she makes a case for the people that she is advocating for, which is a little bit different because when it comes to providing services, it's not so much, I don't want to say it's not about advocacy, but there's a fine line there. There's definitely a fine line, because you still have to be, you got to be professional at all times, number one. Number two, when it gets to the point to where you're like testifying or giving your client information to use against someone that may not necessarily be accurate, it may not necessarily be true, and you're giving them information that is going to woo and overwhelm a jury so that they can win the case, then that goes far beyond what we in the business for, like I said. But when you're getting compensated to go and be an expert witness or a professional witness, how he put it, it's a little bit different than being called and there's no compensation. So whenever you see the attorneys get up there and they ask the people, aren't you getting paid? Or they say, how much are you getting paid an hour? Aren't you getting paid $1,000 or $1,500 an hour to be here to testify? Didn't you get paid $1,300 an hour to testify in the last case? This is why they're putting that out there, because they want to remind the jury that even though these people are professionals, they're still subject to bias because they're being paid for this testimony. So that's why they always mention that whenever they're in court and they have that expert witness up there that's getting paid, whether it's a psychologist, counselor, doctor, whoever it is. If it's a paid professional, and usually when they get not just clinical, but medical professionals will come up, or usually medical professionals and people that own their own practice or work for certain businesses, like they have to pay them to come up there and be witnesses, because they're not coming up there just putting their stuff on the line and giving you all this free time, especially when they got to go and do all these evaluations. They got to go and analyze materials. They got to go and analyze what other people said, what other people did. You got them going through 10, 30, 40 different depositions. They got to sit there, go through all this stuff, look at what they think is good, look at what they think is, could be used against the people, look at what they think may sway a jury one way or the other. Like, they're looking through all this stuff trying to get this information. So it goes beyond the regular scope of clinical practice. So they are trying to remind the jury, like, don't let them fool you. Like, what they're saying for either side, it sounds good, but don't forget that they are paid. They are being paid to give you guys this information. So it's not necessarily going to be the most efficient information. They're going to give you information, but best believe it's going to err on the side of the people that are paying them. He had her give the correct amount. Right here. Yeah, you've been watching. Because initially the paperwork said that she got paid $100 an hour. That's actually an insult. And he had her go back and basically let the jury know, no, look, I'm getting paid $500 an hour. So he was like, okay, well, you saw that, because she said that she saw that the error was in there, but she didn't have them corrected. Best believe if there was another error in there, say that they misstated her credentials, it would have been corrected on site. Let's say that they misstated some of her past history, her work history, and some of the things that she did that she sees as accomplishments. Those things would have been corrected in those transcripts ASAP. So that's what they were trying to show. Look, you didn't have you knew that stuff was in there wrong. You and the attorneys knew that it was wrong, and you didn't say anything about it. You didn't have them corrected. Why? Because you didn't want them to know that you were getting paid that much per hour. And these people are putting in hours, y'all. We're not talking about 3, 4, 20. We're not talking about a small number of hours. We're talking about some hours. They like, what is it? The girl said, I can sit and talk for hours, stay with you out. They talking about hours and hours and hours. Like, they're really talking about hours. And she tried to minimize it. And even with that, that's a form of manipulation. And that's coming from the clinician that's sitting on that stand. So that's not a good look. It's not a good look. And hopefully that's something that the jurors paid attention to. Now, let me be clear on this. I am not a fan of Johnny Depp. Like, I don't know nothing about no pirates and none of that stuff. I mean, it is what it is. But with this particular case, again, it's all about doing stuff the right way. And when you look at it, when you look at his testimony, when you look at Amber's testimony, I mean, it's like apples and oranges. But you can see where she is intentionally, even before she got on the stand, watching her demeanor whenever they did sweep the cameras by her. She's very manipulative. And she's been working on the jury since day one. They may not have known that she was working on it, but she has been working on the jury from day one. She's been working on the media from day one. As a matter of fact, she didn't like the way that the media was portraying her throughout all this stuff, even though she's not supposed to be watching this stuff while the trial is going on. But she fired her PR people because, you know what I mean? Like, it's a lot. And I don't want to focus on her mental illness too much because this month is National Mental Health Awareness Month. So I don't want to go and harp on that too much. But it's a definite, like, there's some there there. There's some there there. I'm going to show you just a little piece for those of you who did not get a chance to watch her on today and yesterday, and she is still not finished. But the defense had a chance to call her up, and mind you, let me remind you again that she is the one that is being sued by him, and then she entered a countersuit against him. So he's suing her for defamation for the op-ed that she wrote, and she's countersuing him, saying that he caused her to lose some money, just some mess. So I'm gonna just let you guys see a little bit of her, and I want you to put your comments in the chat. I'm gonna try to be quiet for a while and not even say anything about what I'm looking at. Like, but you guys just tell me. Just put your comments in the chat. I just be reading the comments while you guys watching the while you guys are watching the stream. So let me pause this for a minute. I want you guys to look at her facial expressions. I want you to look at her her body language, the words that are coming out of her mouth. Just everything. I don't want to tell you exactly what I got from it. I want you to go and draw your own conclusions from all this from this stuff. So let me go in and get this blown up for you guys so we can
try
get into
to
it.
He would make these comments about whoring myself out, but do so in the context of me acting, and he would talk about other actresses who do my role in this way where they were worthless whores, that they were fame hungry, expletive, just this. The point is, it felt really dirty to be an actor. Never mind that he was one. It was dirty that I wanted to do this job that I wanted to do, and I was doing the job of an actress. It was everything every time I was walking out of the house, he would ask me, "That's really what you're wearing, kid? Oh, I see." I wore a dress to an event once, and I felt beautiful in it. Like, stupid as that sounds, I felt pretty in this dress I picked out, and I showed it him because it's a carpet, it's red carpet, so it's like, publicized, and I kind of thought it was weird he wasn't saying anything about it. I left him to go do this red carpet, and I was like, "Did you see the event I went to?" Basically, I felt pretty, and I thought, like, "Did you see that?" I wanted him to say something about that, I guess. And he said, well, this is after he stopped talking to me for some time, didn't tell me why. When he came back in my life, he wouldn't explain why he was acting different. He just kind of acted mad at me. I didn't know what I had done wrong. And when I brought up the dress and the event, because it was an event to support a charity I was really involved with at the time, and I said, did you see that thing? And he said, yeah, I think the whole world saw that, kid. That's how they'll remember you. That's how the world will remember you. I was like, oh, come on. I mean, it's like, but I felt good in it. I felt good. And he said, yeah, kid, that's what you're putting out there in the world. No one will ever forget that. And that's all they'll see you as. that's what you wanted. That's what you were going for. You know, my dress was low cut. I get it. It's low cut. But I felt, I felt really embarrassed and horrible that I wore that. I felt like, how could I have made that choice? Of course, he's right. You start to believe it. I started to believe that made a lot of sense, of course. But it didn't stop with that. It was clothing in general. And when I walked out of the house, it wasn't just like, hey, you're not allowed to wear that. It was like, oh, really? That's what you're wearing. No wonder you get cast in those roles. No wonder you that's what you are. That's what you're making it. And it continued. And then there would be a blow up. And at first it was just to throw something, smash some things. He loves to smash up a place, an apartment, furniture. That's what it started with. And glass. Threw glass at me, and I remember it was summer. And he just threw this glass across the kitchen, and it didn't hit me, but it shattered behind me, and I remember thinking that it very easily could have hit me. And that calling me a whore, it didn't start with using the whore word. It was just comments until it would escalate. And then I started to notice the pattern of escalation where he'd throw glass or turn over a table. Then he would hit the wall, and then he'd hit the wall really close to my head. Like when I'm standing there, just hit the wall, screaming at me. But then he would disappear and get clean and sober, and he'd come back and tell me.
Okay, so this was her testimony from yesterday, and I was trying to see if you guys had any thoughts about it. This part of her testimony was actually a bit more believable to me because she wasn't that dramatic with this particular testimony. I see Chocolate Chip says today Amber was really giving a good acting performance. She did a little bit. She did some on yesterday, but today she really got into the dramatics of it all. So let me take this one. Down. Hold up 1 second.
I'll overrule for them.
Thank you. Please continue.
This argument happened because Johnny was. I didn't agree that this gentleman was a famous musician over the age of 18, spent the night at the house, and I felt protective over Lily Rose and concerned. And naturally, they were not my children. It's not my place. And I understand that. I know it's a sensitive subject, so I understand why Johnny got so upset with me. But that and the introduction of the weed with his daughter, she was so young, I just felt protective. Again, it's not my place. I understand that. And I made him really angry by weighing in on that. Okay.
Did there come a time that there was a family engagement gathering?
Well, we celebrated Thanksgiving out in London. The kids were there. There was a stint of sobriety following how sick he got on set with Paul Bettany.
Let me pause this just a little bit. Let me move this up a little bit. Because I want to give you guys
2014, the Met Gala. Could you please tell the jury what a Met Gala is and what's involved in that?
Objection compound.
Overruled. Met Gala is a big event, annual event, celebrity event. in New York. It's a fashion event, but it's just a major red carpet event. And so you have to be invited, and it's kind of a thing, and we were invited that year. And I had already gone for the previous year or two, and this year we were going to go together. And at some point in the evening, we're sitting across the table, and Johnny starts asking me about this woman. He thought I was looking at this woman in a sexual way, and I kind of turned it around on him and said that it's
Objection, hearsay.
It's context, Your Honor. This is context.
Sustained objection.
Okay. Just say what Mr. Depp said then. I guess you can't tell us what you said to him.
Okay. He was accusing me of flirting, and that's how the argument started. I don't recall what other accusations I was fielding at that moment, but typically in my experience with him, it wasn't just one. So you'd make a point, and then he would go on to a different accusation. But I remember that what started it is this accusation that I had been flirting at this event. We get back to the hotel room, and Johnny shoves me and kind of grabs me by the collarbone area, like not really my neck, but top of my neck, above my collarbone, below my neck. I think at that point when we were still in the living room, I shoved him back, but I don't really recall too many specifics. I remember he threw a bottle at me. It missed me, but it broke the chandelier. And at some point, I remember maybe this was the shove that I was talking about, but at some point, Johnny and I are in a struggle in the living room, and he kind of like shoves me down on the sofa, and I get up and I'm trying to get him off of me, and it's just stronger than me. I don't know how else to describe it. And at some point, he just whacks me in the face. And I had not, at the time, been I think that was the first time I was like, is this a broken nose? At the time, I was unsure what that feeling was, but I suspected I had a broken nose. And other than that, I was relatively unscathed.
Just a broken nose.
My nose being swollen, discolored, red. And I took a picture of my face at some point and made a joke about it to my friend about how bad I looked compared to how.
Objection, hearsay.
It was not for to prove the truth of the matter.
It's not sustained objection.
Okay. Okay. Just don't say what you told a friend. Okay. Okay. Let's take you to.
So let me pause this right here and just stop this for a minute. Okay. Lord have mercy. Hey, Parnell, how you doing? Yeah, Miss Fat, it was some of the comments for me too. It was the comments for me too. So one of the big things with this was a little bit toned down, and I actually have to like go through the clips to get to some of the parts where she's like really exaggerated. And I'm going to show some of those when I actually show you some clips from the woman that is over the lie detector, basically like the Human Lie Detector thing. She has a body language institute. The thing is with what Amber said, she's putting a lot of information out there, but all of the allegations that she made about him hitting her and her having these bruises and all of this stuff, no one saw it. And even she's saying that she showed this friend, like nobody's saying that they saw any of this stuff that she is claiming, all these pictures. And like immediately after this stuff happened, when she said she had all these bruises, no one saw the bruises. And so her attorneys were alluding to the fact that maybe she had on makeup. They said that actually she was wearing makeup. And you know what? They pulled the card with us again. They said that she was wearing Milani. Milani came out and was like, was she alleging that she was wearing that? We didn't even make that line. She lying. They said she lying. Don't be lying on us. Don't be putting us in your mess. They came out and they made a statement. They said, nope, we didn't make that line at that time because they named a specific line. They said, we didn't make that line that time. She wasn't wearing us. We don't know who she was wearing. Maybe it was Iman or somebody else, but if a darn show on us. So they went and cut that off like really quick because, I mean, they caught her in the lie. Like just that quick, and they weren't gonna let her lie on their name, and who blames them, you know? So I mean, that was just something small that started at the very beginning, you know, of the trial, and it was like, why do you have to lie about something like that? Like why? But that's what happened. So they had to come out and put their little statement out, and let them know, like, look, this ain't that. I don't know what y'all got going on, but that's not it. You're not gonna be doing that with us. So what I'm gonna do right now, because I'm gonna come back and speak on this later as well, because my throat is a little sore right now. It's getting a little scratchy. So what I am, which one is this? So I am going to give you let you see the body language expert and her analysis of what she saw. And now with this particular analysis, you can see some more of Amber's behaviors and more of her dramatic behaviors on the stand. So for those of you that are seeing the comments and the chats and stuff on why are people saying all this crazy stuff, if you miss all the action, because I know everybody not sitting down all day watching this trial, especially with her being the only one up there, you kind of get a little understanding of what's going on. So let me pause this and put this back up. And again, I want to know what you guys think. I really want to know what you guys think about what she's saying and about what the body language expert is saying. So let me, again, let me get this up.
Remember just seeing my breath on the windshield, you know, on the glass of the window of the door, just seeing my breath and trying to will myself to have the strength to know what I should do in this moment, because I was heartbroken.
Amber Heard on the stand today. Wow, what a day. Trying to take a look at her testimony from a bunch of different perspectives. Let's bring our expert to help us. Joining us in Alexandria, Virginia, New York Times bestselling author of the book You Can't Lie to Me, retired ATF investigator and world-renowned body language expert, Janine Driver, back with us. Janine, great to see you.
Nice to see you, Vinny.
Let's jump right into it. I'll play some testimony here from Amber Heard. And this is right in the beginning of her testimony, one of the first questions that she answers.
Why are you here? I am here because my ex-husband is suing me for an op-ed I wrote.
And how do you feel about that?
I struggle to have the words. I struggle to find the words to describe how painful this is. This is horrible for me to sit here for weeks and relive everything. Hear people that I knew, some well, some not. My ex-husband, with whom I shared a life, speak about our lives in the way that they have. This is the most painful and difficult thing I've ever gone through.
Janine Driver,
You know, let me pause that for a
hear,
second. You know what?
Let
Let me just pause that for a second, because and that just made something click for me, because she allegedly has a history of being, I'm gonna say, abused by her dad, like a lot of physical abuse by her dad, and that traumatized her, rightfully so. And so when I hear her say that this was the worst thing that she's had to deal with, when I clearly saw, I don't know if that was yesterday or the day before. Yes, it was the day that Dr. Hughes was on the stand, and she was talking about the PTSD, and they were getting her. She was focusing on the stuff that happened with her and Johnny, saying that that's what caused the PTSD. And the attorneys were like, okay, but what happened? What about what happened with her when she was a child? Because she had this trauma that happened when she was a child. And the attorney spoke on that a little bit. And she was like, Amber basically felt the need to protect her dad, even though he was doing this stuff to her. And like they felt that she was doing the same thing with Johnny, even though he was hurting her. When they started talking about her dad, she got visibly upset. Like she was fighting back tears. That was a moment when you actually saw her fighting back tears, when they actually mentioned the situation with her dad. Whereas whenever the stuff was happening and she was talking about Johnny Depp, and she was trying to generate tears and couldn't get the tears to come, it was a completely different response. So me, like, I wasn't even paying any attention to that, with her saying that this was the worst thing that happened to her, when the thing that happened with her parents, with both of her parents allegedly being these big heroin addicts, and her going through all this stuff during her childhood. I can't imagine why going through this trial, not the actual acts that she's alleging that led up to the trial, but just this defamation hearing right here, why this would be the worst thing that ever happened to her compared to the other stuff that happened to her. But who am I to tell her, how she should feel about a situation? This is just my opinion. So let me continue on.
Listen, Vinny, I wish we had an hour together.
This is Janine.
Today.
Well, we have a show every night, so don't worry. We'll have plenty of time.
Good. I'll have you back. So we see just at the end of that clip there, Amber sucked in her lip and bites her lip. This is concern and stress. The nerves of our lip are stimulated by her sucking in her lip like that. It's as if back in the day when we sucked our thumb, it's that comforting gesture. So we see that. The problem with Amber in her testimony is that she does all these start-stop sentences. This is congruent with someone who is being deceptive. In the clips you played earlier, it's interesting because her percentages are off. The question was, do you remember the first time you were hit? And she says, yes. And she stacks the deck in the beginning. This is something we saw with Jussie Smollett, who staged a hate crime in Chicago a couple of years ago. He did a huge percent, about 60% up front in his story. The actual incident where this bad stuff happened to him was like 20%, and then a short after. We're seeing the same thing here with Amber Heard. She's stacking the deck up front. She gives us this big stress about how much cocaine he had in this bottle. She's giving us irrelevant information. Liars will often do this, Vinny. They'll give us a lot of truthful information at the front. They're stacking the deck, right? They're telling us all these things are truthful. I believe that the cocaine was there. I believe it was a big bottle. I believe they were sitting on the couch together. The problem is when she gets to the actual attack, it is such a small percent. It's maybe 15%. We have a big before, a big after. The incident itself is small. The percentages are off here. We're always looking for about 30% up front, 20 to 30%, 50% of the attack, and then we're looking for a small after. What happened after? It should be really short, maybe 10, 15, no more than 20%. And so her percentage is off. Also, I want to talk about something called statement analysis, if I may. One of the things when she said, he slapped me, I want you to re-listen to it over and over again. She doesn't say he slapped me. She says, slapped me. She drops the pronoun, and when people are being deceptive, Vinny, people will have a change in pronouns or they'll drop it. She doesn't say, he slapped me. She also changes her tense. So she goes from slapped, the first one's a slapped, the second one's a slapped, past tense. The third one is a slap. That is current tense. When people are making up a story, they'll talk in current tense. I wrote down some of the things. She then said, before I knew it, he starts crying. Instead of he started crying. Her current tense to past tense is indicative of someone who's making up a story in the spot. I think parts of it are true and many of it is deceptive. And that's why anyone in law enforcement watching this, I spoke to law enforcement earlier today. It's laughable, sadly, what she's doing on the court.
Let's take a listen to some more. And this part, it gets a little more graphic. It's showing the nasty Johnny that she is painting inside the court.
He would make these comments about, whoring myself out, but do so in the context of me acting, and he would talk about other actresses who do my role in this way where they were worthless whores, that they were, you know, fame hungry, you know, expletive, you know, just this. The point is, it felt really dirty to be an actor. Never mind that he was one.
How about there? What are you seeing?
I believe this is truthful. Why? Because we're seeing her leak disgust. Her upper lip is coming up, Vinny, when she's saying, you know, calling them dirty whores, and that upper lip comes up in disgust. This body language and her tone and pitch, it's all congruent, right? So we have the same tone and pitch. She's not doing these start-stop sentences. She does pause, but continues with her sentence. This part, I believe she's telling the truth. There was disgust right there when the upper lip came up. The problem is when she talks about the attacks, and I think we'll hear it again more tomorrow when we hear about supposedly more attacks. You're going to see and hear those tense changes. The body language isn't going to be congruent with what she's telling us. She also had a couple points here. You may see it. She holds her nose slightly high. When people do this, this is extreme confidence, superiority, arrogance, and indignation. So it's out of place for a battered woman to have her head held high here. It's this smugness.
Now, Johnny Depp's head was held down low during a lot of the testimony. He's looking down, and a lot of people commenting on it. What does it mean? What is, I mean, I don't know if he's drawing or what he's doing there, but clearly his head is down while his ex-wife is talking about their relationship.
Yeah, and even smiles a little bit. So this is to alleviate that negative feeling and to do similar to what she did. She was writing on these notes. The interesting part here, Vinny, is usually the person that's breaking the eye contact is the person who has been abused. It's hard for them to look at the abuser, so they'll often do this eye avoidance, it's called. It's often done when someone looks away and stops looking. I can't deal with the obnoxious person that's right in front of me, and this person's not likable. And so they'll do this eye avoidance. If you've ever been in a meeting where you speak and someone does this, you immediately feel that they don't like you. It's this eye avoidance that happens.
All right, I'm gonna pause this right here. So just for you guys to get to see what Miss Janine is talking about. Now, just to give you a little insight on what I may do and why I'm using Janine. She's actually been doing a lot of interviews, and like she said that she goes and she does training for a lot of federal agencies. She does training for FBI, ATF, just different agencies on different things. She's really good. She's really good. So this will allow me a little chance to, where is this at? Kind of show you guys where I'm at with this, so you see why I talk about it a lot. So let me share my little 2 cents or whatever. So this is me and Janine in DC. Here, and since we all, we have to do receipts and stuff on here, child. So let me just go and let me give you guys this one. So she's, I mean, you guys wouldn't know, but yeah, like she the real deal. Like I where's this one? So this is what she does. She's been doing it for a long time. And you guys see this was back in 2016. So just wanted to put that up there real quick because people always say, well, you did whatever. So I'm just throwing that in there, a little razzle dazzle. But I wanted to put what she was saying on here. And there was another, let me see if I can find it. I thought I saved it, but I didn't see it on my list. I didn't see it on my list, but I'm gonna get back to her. But let me show you guys this because you can't just looking at it like straight on it. It may not give you the full.
I felt like he recognized me.
The fullness of the clips, like the dramatics of it all. So let me just give you this one and hold up. And you can kind of, just to give you guys a better picture. Now, this one has a little, and Lord, I hope he does not hit my video for putting this up here. So he's showing a news clip, so hopefully it won't be a problem. But here we go.
I felt like he recognized me, and I recognized him, and there was just something there that there's the love of my life. And he was. But he was also this other thing.
She kept referring to him as a thing.
And that other thing was awful thing that would come out and take over. And it was, you couldn't see the Johnny I loved underneath it. It was this other thing.
Look at this guy's face, y'all.
No one was honest with him. No one, he'd pass out in his own vomit. He'd lose control of his.
Look at Johnny's face. Watch his eyes.
He'd lose control, and everyone would clean up after him. I cleaned up after him. I mean, this man lost control of his bowels, and I cleaned up after him. His security cleaned up after him, changed his pants in front of me. He would pass out.
Oh, I'm so laughing. I'm laughing.
And then he.
Okay, I'm going to pause this for a second. Okay, just the irony of it all. Yes, Teresa, she does think that she is the smartest person in the room. She is smarter than everybody. And that is, God, I hate to say it, but those are the narcissistic traits that come along with her mental illness that she is dealing with. Lavelle, how you doing? Those are the narcissistic traits that come along with her mental illness. And that's why I said with her, the psychologist that got up there, it bothered me that she was being more so of an enabler when it came to her instead of having her be realistic. But in this particular situation, the diagnosis that Dr. Curry gave her, the borderline personality, the histrionic disorder, Dr. Hughes said that no, that wasn't true, but the devil is a liar. And like I said, I don't want to get into it to make it seem like I'm making fun or poking fun or whatever at that diagnosis, because I'm not. But her behaviors are classic, and that's what we're seeing on here. And again, I have a clinical background, and I know a lot of people are speaking on this, but I wanted to speak on it from a different angle. I'm not coming on here to try to break down all the diagnoses. I'm not coming to try to break down the test. I'm not coming to try to break down the scales on the test. I'm not coming to try to do any of that because there are enough people out here that are doing that. But there are some small things on here that I want to point out that I'm seeing when I'm watching this, and I'm the behaviors to actually see this in action. It's one thing to like see this on a movie and you're like, oh wow, like they really, have these traits or these characteristics or whatever. But to see this playing out and to understand that although this is on TV, this is not a movie. This is real life that we're watching. We're really watching somebody do this. And some of the things are laughable. What I do see on here is when her attorney talked about the emotional and the psychological abuse, I think that people may be overlooking the fact that what she's doing is somewhat of an emotional thing because she's using this moment to go and take the things that are humiliating that could possibly be degrading to him, and she's trying to put those things out. A lot of the things that she's putting out have absolutely nothing to do with the questions that the attorney asked her. But the attorney is giving her leeway and also leading her in some instances to go ahead and put that information out that she wants to get out for the jury. So that's why you constantly hear Johnny's attorneys coming in, objection. Like they're just coming in like left and right because they know what they're trying to do. And even though it may be aggravating to a lot of people for them to be objecting so much, they are doing that to throw Amber off her game, to try to get her out of these stories that she's telling. So even with the situation with Johnny and the attorney, they're laughing because her talking about him soiling his clothes and, you know, people had to change him and she had to change him and clean him up. Someone in the comments earlier, and I couldn't agree more, for those of you who haven't been following this, there was a situation where they had an argument and she got mad with him about something. And her, as a grown woman, sat on their bed and defecated in their bed, and she left it there for him to find. And then she laughed about it with some of his staff. She admitted it and she laughed about it. She was like, "Oh, I guess that went a little too far." And then she tried to turn around and say that the dog did it. So I'm imagining that what they're laughing at right there, and like I said, a comment was made in the chat before. It was like, you know, we know that ain't true because she wouldn't even clean up her own mess she left in the bed. So we know she's not cleaning up behind him. So that's what people were saying this laugh was about. We don't know what the laugh was about, but it may just be about the dramatics of it all. I'm going to let this one finish because it was just the moment that they showed. And I'm like, yeah, they caught a good moment here because she was doing the most.
Walk around.
Oh my God.
He didn't have a problem. Until he did. Until he couldn't support it anymore and he'd get clean and he'd get sober. And then he was this thing again. This thing that made me feel so loved. That made me feel like.
Oh my God.
Like my.
Oh my God.
Like my soulmate, as cheesy as that sounds, I just felt.
Yeah. Oh my God. Let me stop.
I felt like the luckiest woman in the world.
Let me let this play.
So while you were filming London Fields and Johnny had...
Okay, just to give you guys the context of this, they're showing how she just switched up at the drop of a dime. Look at how emotional she is here and how she's playing to the jury. When you see her looking to the side, she is looking at the jury. So she either kept her eyes on the jury or on him. And in this particular instance, watch this shift, how she is so upset. And then she looks over at the jury and stuff starts to calm down. Just the mood shift. Let me just...
gone back to LA. What, if any, issues did you have with him on fraternizing with the cast? I'm going to ask, Michelle, can you pull up Defendant's Exhibit 188, please?
No tears. Little squint.
Your Honor, I'm going to object on hearsay.
Your Honor, I'm going to, let's pull up 188A. I've redacted
Shift.
Everything but
Mood
what
has
Mr.
changed.
Depp says.
All right, let me
On
just take a look
188A.
at 188A.
That's admission against interest.
Did y'all see that? Hold on, let me go back so I can see the chat. Did y'all see that? Before I move on, did y'all? I got my own money. Hey, how you doing? Did y'all see that? Do I need to rewind it back? Did y'all see how she just switched it off just like that? Y'all saw it. It's like, what the what? I'm gonna play it one more time. Let me play it one more time. She is visibly emotional. That's how she's trying to come across at the very beginning. She's looking at the jury, talking about the situation, and once the attention is no longer on her for a second, she looks at the jury again to see, okay, let me see if they got that. And then when the judge starts talking, she turns it off just like that. When they start looking at something else, she turns it off.
And I felt like the luckiest woman in the world.
So while you were filming London Fields and Johnny had gone back to LA, what, if any, issues did you have with him on fraternizing with the cast? I'm going to ask, Michelle, can you pull up Defendant's Exhibit 188, please?
Look at the jury.
Your Honor, I'm going to object on hearsay.
Your Honor, I'm going to, let's pull up 188A.
Gone.
I've redacted everything but what
Just
Mr.
that
Depp
fast. It's
says.
gone.
All right, let's
On
take a look
188A.
at 188A.
That's
Once that woman objected, it was like that, and that's what I said. I think they use those objections to kind of throw her off. Once those objections came and the judge and the lady attorney started talking, boom, the switch went off. And that's one of the things. And she, Lord have mercy, bless her heart, Jesus. Let it play out, because she threw a couple more sniffles back in there. She was make sure she sniffled in the mic so people could hear it, but there were no tears. And you even saw her squeeze her eyes to try to get some tears to come out. But the thing was, like the body language, like Janine was saying, it's like her emotions and her body language, like it wasn't matching up even to her words. And the stuff that she was saying when she started talking about him doing stuff to her, it was these big moments where she made it sound like she was crying, but there was nothing there. And then the minute she started talking about something else, or somebody said objection, or the attorney asked a different question, it was shut off. Like the conversation didn't even take place. It was like, and he did so much, and it was gone. So that's why I'm gonna do this one more time, y'all. One more time, and I'm gonna let this play all the way through, because she did get back in scene, but it was like she was getting in character. She would get out of character. She would remember she needed to be back in character. Let me just play this again.
And I felt like the luckiest woman in the world.
So while you were filming London Fields and Johnny had gone back to LA, what, if any, issues did you have with him on fraternizing with the cast? I'm going to ask, Michelle, can you pull up Defendant's Exhibit 188, please?
Your Honor, I'm going to object on hearsay.
Watch her face change.
Let's pull up 188A. I've
quick.
redacted everything but what Mr. Depp says.
All right, let me
On
just take a look at
188A.
188A.
That's admission against interest.
Get back in character, girl. You got to get back in character.
Do you have that? You don't have it.
Now she's looking at the jury. Roll your eyes.
While they're working on that, can you tell us what transpired?
Breaking news just into our Way 31 news. Breaking news.
Let's get back on the y'all. Again, I'm doing this completely different because you can get the information from the other channels. You can get your legal aspect of it. You can get the clinical, and you got all the clinicians giving you all these psychological terms and all this stuff here. For me, I just want to be real about what's going on with this situation and what I'm seeing, like all the way around. You got these people coming up here, and I don't want to discredit either one of the psychologists that came up. And I didn't show you guys Dr. Curry. I was looking at Dr. Curry at the beginning too, because I'm like, okay, you saying this stuff, all this stuff for Johnny. Because like I said, on both sides, they both give the people what they want. They give them what they're being paid for. But still, at the end of the day, the way that she characterized Amber was spot on. It was on point, even though Amber's psychologist tried to go and discredit everything that she said. She broke down some of the intricacies of the MMPI. She talked about how many questions, how long this thing takes, 60 to 90 minutes, like what kind of things you can assess for on the test, what you can look out for. She talked about the things that she did to show where Amber may have been malingering, making her symptoms, her symptomology look a little bit worse than what it actually is. And that the thing is, for the other psychologists come and say that wasn't true, like you really can't say that, because a person can go to this clinician over here and report one thing and present this way, and then go to a completely different clinician and report, present completely different. It just depends on like what, if they have an angle, then they're going to present themselves different depending on the person that they're with. And especially when you're dealing with people and you know that this is going to be used in some legal matters or whatever, then you may possibly get a show, and you have to account for that. You got to take that into consideration whenever you're doing all your stuff, which is what I feel that Dr. Hughes did not do. She didn't take that stuff into account. She knew good and well that that girl was lying about a lot of that stuff. The difference between me and her with that, I would have checked her on it. And that's a little bit different. We would have had to stop for a minute. We would have had a conversation about something like, okay. We need to make sure that we are being completely honest. Not saying that she's lying. I wouldn't call her a liar, but I would definitely, stuff that just made it seem like it was just too far-fetched. Like, we got to have a conversation, because I got to make sure that we're on the same page about being realistic and serious about this therapy thing and what we got going on. And for me, I felt like she was therapist hopping too. Like, she was going to different, anyway. She had a lot going on. She definitely had a lot going on. And I think for me, in her attempts to make him look bad, and I want to say this with him, I don't think that he's like 100% like pure. I do think that he has a substance abuse problem. Like, well, he admitted that he had a substance abuse problem. So there was definitely a substance abuse problem there. And with him using all of those different types of drugs, then it does bring on behaviors. And you mix these drugs with alcohol, it brings on, certain behaviors. But do I think that he did all this stuff and that he was a perpetrator of all this violence towards her? I do not believe that. I believe that she was the aggressor. I honestly believe that she was the aggressor in this situation, because you had too many situations where she was the aggressor and he tried to walk away. And she even admitted that he walked away from certain things, and she went running behind him. She kept, and that's one of the worst people to really be around when you're feeling upset about something and you're trying to get away, and they're following behind you, trying to keep stuff going, pushing on you, hitting on you. And what I don't like about that situation is you're giving her a pass to go and hit on him and push on him because she's mad and she feel like he said something to her that was, out of the way and all this stuff. And she can just go and just beat on him however she wants to. In a minute he raised his hand at her, then it's going to be a problem. Those things I don't agree with. And I feel like as a counselor, as a clinician, like whatever you're doing with her, we need to have some conversation so that you understand that it's not okay for you to be putting your hands on him. It's not just about him putting his hands on you. It's not okay for you to be putting your hands on him. And we can't say, oh, well, I'm a woman, I can do whatever, I can't hurt him. Yes, you can. Women and men can hurt each other. Size does not matter at the end of the day if you are truly trying to hurt somebody. We have to get out of that mentality that it's just that women are the only ones that can be hurt, and we act like men don't go through stuff at all, because it's not true. So that's why I'm glad that the counselors, that the attorneys called Dr. Hughes out on this particular thing, because she does have a specific group that she works with. And if that's the group that she works with, that's fine. That's her niche. That may be her thing. But you got to be honest about it. The jury needs to know that these are the people that you are used to working with and that you usually advocate for, the people that you usually testify for, the people that you usually testify against. Like, this is the thing that you are known for, like nationwide. And this is why people pull you to testify in these particular situations or to do trainings in these particular situations. We can't overlook that. And so the attorneys were really making sure that that was one thing that was not overlooked. Kudos to them on that, because we got to get out of this mentality. And y'all know I am for women. I'm for women all day, but we're not going to sit here and act like stuff does not happen to men. We are not going to sit here and act like we don't have women that feel like it is okay to put their hands on men. I was always taught, you better not hit somebody if you don't think you can beat them. Man, woman, whatever, dog, cat, whatever. So my thing, and just the respect level of it all. You don't want somebody putting their hands on you, and you don't put your hands on them, period. point blank. And then I think that we just got to the place where it's always about making sure that, you know, the women didn't get hurt in the situation, but we can't sit here and just neglect, you know, what men may have going on, because you do have women that are batterers. You absolutely do. And those women, a lot of times when the police is called out, if they can get to the police first, you know, a lot of them can give the police that story and they're going to go along with it. And the man may end up getting locked up, or the man has to leave the residence or whatever, just based on the fact that the woman had a better story. Or in some cases, the man doesn't want to admit that, you know, his wife or his partner, his significant other, was beating up on him. And a lot of times in situations like that, it's not even the man that calls the police. A lot of times it's somebody else that calls the police. That's a bystander. So I guess for me and this, and I do feel like he got a raw deal, because they came after him. He did lose a lot of money. He did stop showing up in movies and stuff like that. So I'm going to keep watching this, because I'm really looking forward to the cross-examination of Miss Amber. I am really looking forward to it. Carla, hey, how you doing? How you doing? Do you think she got angry at him for having a substance abuse problem? Carla, you know what? She seemed like she did, but if you hear her talking, you hear her testimony, you hear the testimony of the other people that was around, she was a substance user too. She was popping mushrooms like crazy. She was drinking red wine like crazy. She did MDMA with him. So I'm like, who are you to like go after him for what he's doing when you participate in the stuff yourself? Like, you may not do it as much as he's doing it, but sister, you out here getting it in too. You know, they were at Coachella, and she got so messed up that she was throwing up and all this stuff. And the driver, the black guy that was a former Marine, and he was telling the story, and they tried to make it seem like he didn't know what he was talking about. But he, you know, like she was messed up, you know, like. So I guess my thing is like, where is that line drawn? Like, I mean, are you putting yourself in a category too? Because they talked about her dealing with Al-Anon and all that stuff, and they said that she was doing it for him. I'm like, are you sure she wasn't doing it for herself? Like, at the end of the day, because she had her own stuff going on too. She was not, her hands weren't clean either. And if she was showing her behind like that without being under the influence, and I can only imagine how being under the influence affected her. Like, so that was my thing with that. So that was a good question. Good question. I was done with her when I heard her call him a baby. Like, yeah, she was on video talking about what he was saying. You know, you punched me. And she was like, no, I didn't punch you. I just hit you. You put your hands on me, period. You can. So I guess she's saying it wasn't a closed fist all the way. I don't know what, but she told him he was acting like a baby, and you know, went with and called him a B and a ussy and all this stuff. And I'm like, but y'all don't think this is abuse? What Dr. Hughes said was she was responding. She was being reactive. Well, what the flip was she reacting to? Because she didn't give an explanation on that. It's like, and they tried to get her to see, like, you're saying all this stuff that she's doing, like it's okay because you're saying that she's reacting to something. So her going and throwing a can of primer at his head and busting his head open, like that was her being reactive. Her throwing Red Bull bottles at him, and her throwing vodka bottles and ended up with the dude with a chopped off, the tip of his finger chopped off. You saying that this stuff is reactive? You're not, like, you really gonna sit here and say that this woman isn't an abuser? Like, you really gonna say that with a straight face? You can really say that she isn't an abuser? It's like, the stuff that she did, like, it could be corroborated. The stuff that she did to him, the stuff that she was saying that he did to her. Number one, some of her stories seem to change. But nobody is validating, even the people that are on her side, nobody's validating her stories. So that leaves one to wonder, like, what are you being honest about? And why don't people want to come forth and validate what you said? Why? If it was all him doing these things, and why won't anybody confirm or deny? You know what I mean? Like, the people that are coming out, even people that she was close to, they're coming out saying that they never saw this stuff from him. And don't get me wrong, there are some things that can happen in the house that no one will ever know about because you're not in people's houses. But for the things that people can see, and all the audio recordings and all the stuff that she was recording, I mean, even on her recording, she was the aggressor. So I don't like that the jurors get to sit on her testimony for a whole week without the cross happening. I'm healed. I didn't like that initially, and then I thought about it. One thing that's going to work in the prosecutor's favor, even though nobody's supposed to be looking at the stuff with the trial and all that stuff, if you think those people are not going to go back and look at that trial and go back over everything she said, they will. And they're going to come after her. And they got more than enough time to do it now. They got time. Now, she got time to work on her stuff, and I don't believe that she's going to sit there and her lawyers aren't going to contact her. I do believe they're going to have some contact. I just don't think it's reasonable for the judge even think they're not going to have contact. And they're going to go and look at these things on YouTube and everything else to see what people saying and to see how they looked on TV and all this stuff. I mean, realistically, we're going to be realistic about that. But I think that it's going to give them more time to like really go back and study her and like really go back and look at the things that she said. Because y'all know when we go back and look at something a second and third time, it's like we're watching a movie. It's like, oh, shoot, I ain't see that the first time. So the stuff that they already have stuff they were going to get her on just from her testimony yesterday and today. But now you got time to really sit on it. You got the whole team looking at it. They're going to come after her hard. So I know that it was a strategy by the defense to drag this stuff out that full time to make sure that they couldn't even get to her today. But I think that's going to end up biting them in the behind at the end because this is just giving them more time to really go back and look at her style, look at how they can catch her up, see what gets her upset, see what ticks her off, seeing that when they say objection at certain parts that it throws her off, they're going to be even more strategic when they come back. So she's really going to have to step her game up whenever she come back. I would not want to be in her situation. Her PR team is going to be working overtime. She got some new PR people here to land. Because, she fired the ones that she had. She got some new ones. Because she was Donald Trump and them jokers. You're fired. You're fired. She was Donald Trump and them. They had to go. Because they won't put in her. I mean, the thing, she's making herself look bad. Excuse me. There's only so much that her PR team can do. You know what I mean? It's just like it's only so much her attorneys can do. When you get up there and you present yourself in a manner like if she would have just got up there and told whatever happened, then her story will be way more believable. All the dramatics and the antics that she has going on the stand, it's just extra. She's literally sitting up there like she is in a role. She's presenting to the jury like it's a camera in front of her and she's like playing a role for them. And it's when I say it's just over, I have never seen anybody testify like that. Like never. And I've been to court a lot. I have never seen anybody testify like that. Like, what in the world? It would make me think that she had some stuff going on. Just like one of the things I noticed was that Johnny kept messing with his nose, right? He's doing a lot of sniffling and stuff like that. Now we know, according to her, allegedly, he has a history of cocaine use. But I'm looking at you and I'm like, well, you messing with your nose too. So is there something that you want to tell us? Because oftentimes when you have one person that's doing it and they're doing it a lot, then a lot of times, they can talk their partner. I ain't saying all the time, y'all, but they can talk their partner into doing some stuff here. Just go try it out. I'm like, were you trying that stuff out too? Because, anyway, that's just let me leave that alone. And the fact that she was always trying to stop him from leaving. If someone is abusive to you, you wouldn't want them to get away from it. Lulu. And the fact that she got up on that stand and she talked about him being the best thing that happened to her and how much she loved him. And she talked about this stuff a lot. Now she had to go back and put this other part on it. But again, too, I think that's part of manipulation with her because she's trying to get him to focus on those things. And maybe in the midst of all this, because you hear some commentators saying that, maybe while they're on this break, they'll go ahead and settle. They'll go ahead and settle all this. And when they come back, there won't be anything happening. I think for him, he's beyond that settlement part, unless she's gonna come out and say that she lied about all this and you know, at this, like, you really damaged this man's reputation. Again, there are certain charges, certain allegations when they are put out there. It doesn't matter if people come back and say I lied or that they didn't do it. They're out there, and there's no coming back from that. People don't forget that. It's like there's always going to be a constant reminder. Oh, well, you know, they said he did such and such. Like, that's how these things work. And you had her talking about the physical and then the emotional stuff, but then she even threw, you know, some of that sex stuff up in there too during this. And I'm like, oh, well, damn, where did that come from? And so it's she's putting even more damage. She's using this hearing as an opportunity to put more smear on his name. So I don't know some of her behaviors. And like I said, when it comes to victims of certain things, that's why I'm not talking about the sex part of it, or just some of the things that she's saying, because, you know, in this situation, I feel like he is the victim. I'm not going to say that I don't believe that anything ever happened to her, but from what I see in this particular situation, he appears to be the victim. She is definitely an aggressor. I'm not going to say she was the aggressor 100% of the time, but based on what she's putting out here, based on just everything in its totality, she is definitely the aggressor. She may not have been from the beginning, but she was at the end. So that's my spiel on that right there. And I'm gonna go ahead and get off here. I'm gonna come back and give some more on this, but I just wanted to touch on this while it was still fresh in my mind, because I was holding on to it all week. I'm just sitting up here. So hope you guys enjoyed this little spiel, you know, that I put out here, my little take on it all. Hope y'all got something out of it. And hope y'all tune in for the next one. Other than that, y'all be safe. Take care of yourselves. And remember this, y'all. Remember this. If you don't remember nothing else that I say tonight, I need y'all to remember this. Mind your business. Mind your business. And let me say one more thing to you. Just because, you know what? No, I won't. Y'all have a good night. Bye.